Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is the City of Aspen City Council regular meeting for August 23rd, 2022. That's a call to order. And can we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Howenstein.
Present.
Councillor Mesereau.
Present.
Councillor Richards. Here. Mayor Tory.
I'm here as well. Tonight, before we take public comment, we do have a scheduled public appearance. We have the Aspen International Mountain Foundation, who is going to be hosting a global event here in just a few weeks in Aspen, and they're going to give us an update about the United Nations Mountain Partnerships event. If you guys would like to come on up to the front table here, make sure those lights are on green. They look like it. Point those microphones right at your face, if you will.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it would be helpful if we could have the PowerPoint, if that's possible. There we go. Perfect. So thank you so much. First of all, we want to thank you again and again for being our partner with this. The City of Aspen is a co-host of the 6th Global Meeting of the Mountain Partnership, and we're really honored to be working with you. We'd like to start with, it's coming very well. I had a little bit of a hiatus, so a couple of things got pushed to the side. But we'd like to talk really quickly about the support that Aspen is giving us. And one is recognition on the global meeting sponsor wall. An opportunity to have a short promotional video message run during the program. A dedicated social media post to thank you for your support, prominent brand visibility at the event on the website and in advance with digital promotion. Of course, the logo displayed in all the breakout rooms, visibility on the event registration page, corporate video message included on the event website, booth space if you're interested. People will be having, a lot of the outdoor industry and nonprofits will be having breakout booth sessions, and an opportunity to host or co-host a side event, which you are doing, which we're very excited about, and John will talk about that. I don't think I need to go through all these numbers, but needless to say, we're having a great turnout. We'll have we're having delegates from all over the world, some very high-level delegates, several ministers of state, representatives from different United Nations organizations. I think we're having the director of UNESCO, the World Trade Organization, several other groups, and we're really excited about that. The Governor Polis will be opening the program on Tuesday morning, along with our Mayor Tory, which we're really honored to have. And we hope that others of you on council will come at various times, and we can talk about that in the next few weeks. I think the most exciting thing we're doing right now is working with your staff to put together a side event that's going to focus on regional, all of our regional municipalities and the sustainable work that's being done, and how we work together as a region, and how that might translate to our global attendees. We're hoping that they might learn from us. Maybe we'll learn from them, but at any rate, it'll be a great opportunity for Aspen. I think I might let you talk about that meeting.
Just a quick overview. First of all, again, I want to reinforce Carino's thanks to the City of Aspen. The city was the first to step up and has been supportive with us, for us, all the way through, and definitely Mayor Tory has been at the forefront. He has assisted in letters. We raised some $100,000 from the state of Colorado for this program, and with a very helpful letter from the mayor and the city in support. What I am really excited, sorry about that. What I'm really excited about is what we're calling the side event that is being co-hosted by the City of Aspen and us at the global meeting. Wednesday afternoon, I think we've scheduled it 4 to 5. There is going to be a side event entitled Community Talk Globally, Act Locally. The concept is, and I'm particularly interested in this because I've been for the last 2 months or so, been up and down our valley talking to elected officials, councils, and sustainability offices to give them try to get them involved. A number of them have joined the Mountain Partnership. You may not know this, but the City of Aspen was the first municipality in America to join the Mountain Partnership in 2010.
Sorry, it was actually the first U.S. government entity to be inducted, to be invited to join, so that's even a bigger honor.
The meetings I was holding up and down the valley had been focused on a community event along the lines that I'll describe for you in a minute. The concept that I've become very excited about is this idea of our communities up and down the valley and on the western Colorado slope working collectively and collaboratively to be making the kind of climate and sustainability changes in the mountains we know we need. The city, as we know, has been at the forefront of this sort of thing right from the Canary Initiative on. So let me focus on the side event. That the idea is we will have a panel of elected officials from most of our communities. We're still collecting thank yous and yes we wills from City of Aspen, Town of Basalt, Snowmass Village, Town of Vail, Eagle County, and Pitkin County. We may also have the mayor of Glenwood Springs. We just haven't heard back from him.
Sure. Oh, him, sorry.
Yes, no, it's him. Very much him with a nice beard. And the session is going to be moderated by the new CEO of CoA, Dallas Blaney. We had originally been working with CoA the possibility of them hosting this event, and we will continue to work with CoA down the road. I'm excited about this event and the grouping of elected officials from up and down our valley because I want to see this activity go beyond just our September 26th to 29th event. This is something that I believe strongly in. The idea of all of our communities, and the City of Aspen is the obvious place to lead it because it has for decades, to really work collaboratively on making a difference and putting together some programs and plans down the road to make this happen up and down our valley. The concept is we will have, the side event will have a Q&A panel of the elected officials moderated by Dallas Blaney. And the concept that the reason we've tied it into the global meeting is we believe we can demonstrate to the international delegates that one of the best ways to make a difference in mountain sustainability is to work within your own community. Part of our marketing of this is we believe that mountains matter, ideas to action. And action is what we need, not just talk. That's why it's talk globally and act locally. I'm very excited about this. And I want to let you know it's that the city that who's reaching out is your climate action group. And I want to give a shout out right now to the two young members of that group, Claire McLaughlin and Tom Karfs. They are, Tim Karfs, excuse me. They have stepped up and taken the ball and run with it and are really working very hard to make this happen. And again, I want to shout out. I'm a big fan, as those of you who know me, of the City of Aspen staff up and down. We've got some of the best people operating in the public arena anywhere, and I'm delighted to see two new young people come on board as well. That's it for the side event, and I very much hope that we see a number of you at the sessions, but also the side event. And of course, we'll be looking for one of you to be sitting on the stage to talk about some of the things that the city of Aspen has done, such as building IQ and the way forward.
There's also
A date for the side event?
We do. It's Wednesday, the 28th, September 28th. Wednesday afternoon, 4 to 5. It'll be at Paepcke. We have the entire Aspen Institute campus for our 3-day events, and it's going to be quite something. We're talking about 150 or so delegates from all over the world, and another 20, 30, 40 people connected with the outdoor industry and others. So we are excited. I mean, it's getting tight and tough, of course, and we're still out there hustling for money, but it is going to be an impressive event.
Amazing.
the side event will be open to the public, all the afternoon side events. And we're not quite sure exactly how we'll do that, maybe have either free or very inexpensive tickets, but they will be open to, and the public is encouraged to come. And I'd just like to say that one of the hurdles that we've had, which is kind of interesting, is visas. And a lot of our international delegates have had a very difficult time getting visas. You know, they've been told that they have to wait 1 or 2 years even to get to the embassy. And these are some of these are very high-level delegates as well. We have Senator Bennett's office has been fantastic. They've been working with us and trying to take each case and each individual. But that has been a bit of a problem for us, along with funding.
Ward has a question.
Yeah, thank you. It occurs to me is that our panel, our side event, and the attendees are all from the Upper Roaring Fork Valley, and that this is a UN on mountain partnership. And I would love to see representatives from other mountain communities in Colorado, Utah, California, Wyoming, and Montana attend. And I wonder what the fee would be for attendance, and if it's still possible to get invite people from those mountain communities. I applaud the efforts of having a panel from the Upper Roaring Fork Valley, but as just like global climate change is not limited to here, and mountains are just not limited to Aspen's 4 mountains, ski mountains, but so I would really like to see we can expand this and invite people from these other mountain communities, other states and communities.
I understand your thoughts and applaud them. In fact, we believe we will have on our panel the Mayor of Vail and perhaps an Eagle County representative. But what you're talking about is something that I was expressing earlier, how we build on this, how we take this forward collaborative and collectively working on our mountain communities. We will be making actual invitations to the side event to all councils in all of our valley and the mountain areas, and I will extend as well to some of the ones you're talking about. Our hope is that we will get attendance at our side event to build on going forward with this idea of collaboration and coordination.
So is the cost of full participation $3,000?
Well, that is if you participate in the full 3 days of the Mountain Partnership meetings. The side events will be essentially open to the public. We're talking perhaps with our event planner, we may have tickets for $10 or so, something like that. The thinking being if you pay $10, you come. If you get it for free, maybe you do, maybe you don't. So the actual invitations to others up and down the valley, elected officials and sustainability offices, will be available. In fact, my guess is, since each of these communities has given us sponsorship money, there won't be any charge at all for them.
But if we wanted to invite somebody from, what's it called, Paradise now instead of Squaw,
So
it would be $3,000 for full participation.
Yeah.
I believe that's right.
That's our cost, is we're not making any money on, no
I
one's making
just
any
want to know if I reach out to
Sure, they're welcome.
the mayor of Truckee, since my daughter lives there, and expressed an interest in it, that it's going to be $3,000 for somebody from Truckee to have full participation, or it would be basically free for all the side events.
Well, we also have opportunities and passes short of full involvement that might be more appropriate for people coming in who will be able to go to all the side events and not participate perhaps in the actual mountain partnership plenary sessions. But I'll follow up, Ward, and provide those alternatives to you.
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
So the morning sessions are plenary sessions for the Mountain Partnership, and every mountain community is or nonprofit is welcome to join the Mountain Partnership, and we do have people coming from Utah and Canada and Mexico. You know, we have people that are members that are attending, and I would really encourage the mayor of Truckee to join the Mountain Partnership. That would be a perfect, ideal candidate, and we would certainly support it. And then they're welcome to come. But there are some charges, but we'd welcome that.
Yeah, if you could provide me with what those charges
Sure.
and what those fees are, so we can maybe reach out. Because the timeline is getting pretty compressed.
It's
on
very
that.
short. Any other questions?
The only question I have is reading through the packet, it mentioned that you're still fundraising for the event. And I do think it has tremendous value both for our community and hopefully globally. Would you like to talk a little bit about your fundraising efforts?
Yes, there is on the slide sheet there, we talk about the funding that we have received to date, which has been very significant. The state of Colorado stepped up with $100,000 from OEDIT, their outdoor organization. We've just received $25,000, a notification of $25,000, again through OEDIT, but from the EDA, from the federal program. They had over 50 applicants for the first round. We asked for 100,000, as one does, but we moved on and have been accepted as one of the half a dozen or so that have been in the first round received money from EDA. As I say, we've received contributions from all of our communities up and down the valley, as well as the town of Vail. And the main reason we're pressing again for funding is the number of the delegates will be coming from countries that cannot afford fully the cost of coming as a delegate, and we are working to underwrite some or all of the expenses of them. And so the more money we raise, the more that we can contribute to the delegates from countries that cannot afford otherwise to come.
And how would a member of our viewing public who might see this get in touch with you? Or
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah.
We have our website, AIMF.org. On that website, it can direct them to Mountains Matter, which is the name of our that we have marketed the event. And there one could see what the alternatives available are. We'd love, of course, to have as many locals as we can enjoy this opportunity.
And AIMF is a 501c3, so we have that
accessible
status.
to the extent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can't wait to see you all there.
And Mayor Tory is going to be talking to us to the international delegates.
Yep, and we need to get together over the next week or two and get prepared.
I might mention, too, that there's also going to be an Aspen Declaration. And it's not about Aspen, but it is the declaration that comes out of this event, and it's called the Aspen Declaration. And Mayor Tory, you'll be speaking on the first day with Governor Polis, but two other opportunities during that week. There will be two other opportunities to announce the Aspen Declaration and then to read the final declaration. So I'm not quite sure. We can talk about that as well, but we hope that, the council will participate in that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all.
And congratulations to you. It's been a lot of work.
Really.
You're almost there.
We're almost there. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Carino.
That'll bring us to citizens' comments and petitions. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address council on items that are not scheduled for public hearing on our agenda. We do ask and enforce 3 minutes for those comments, just to give everybody an equal opportunity to speak. So we will start. I've got a hand up online already, so I'm going to start with Mike, who's online. Mike, can you unmute yourself? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
We've got you a bit. Go ahead and check that again, please.
Can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting me speak, Mayor Tory. Last night I listened to the whole discussion City Council had about the traffic report that came out about the West End. I summarized it and emailed it out to about 180 people that are interested in knowing what the conclusions are and what City Council plans to do. You know, I listened to the whole report, I watched the slides, and it was clear that there was an 85-point analysis that the consultants had concluded. And it was stated that if it was above 55, that means there's a problem. And in that 85-point analysis, several key facts were excluded, like parks in the area, public spaces, schools, of which there are several, and those were left out of that equation for some reason. And I think just in general, you know, we've been, myself and everyone else who's been interested in this, we've been very patient about waiting for this consultation or this analysis to conclude. It concluded, it showed a problem, and, you know, I feel like it's up to you all to provide some relief. And no one is expecting Power Plant Road to be closed. But the discussion yesterday was really an all or nothing. You know, this problem happens from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Doesn't happen all day long, happens for 1 hour. There's 650 vehicles that go through a neighborhood that is filled with children, kids in strollers, bicyclers. Several of you said it's unconscionable, which I agree. And at no point was there a discussion of how do you take the 650, how do you take all those vehicles and maybe just reduce it by some? And it's just, you know, it's puzzling that this is so, people are so resistant to try something. You know, maybe the 650 goes to 500 or 450. You know, the stop signs that were put in place helped. More things like that will help. And, you know, I just feel like, you know, these vehicles that are exiting Aspen, you know, they don't reside in Aspen. They're vehicles that are commuting down Valley. And it's the people that live in Aspen that you all are supposed to be representing. And, you know, so it was unclear to me what the next steps were based off of the meeting last night. I know council and engineering asked for specific feedback, and I didn't feel like I heard a clear response. And I would like to know what the next step is going to be.
Thank you, Mike. Sarah, do you want to encapsulate what the direction coming out of the meeting was last night?
Sure. I'm doing this without notes in front of me, so please fill in. There was 3 options that could have been none, all, or partial presented to the council as possible next steps. what I heard back from the council is to focus on interim solutions that could potentially increase that traffic volume count at peak on Main Street. And so to continue to focus on that as a priority. So that is one area. The second area that I heard was to, oh gosh, I just forgot. What was point one? I'm trying to remember the slide.
Additional changes in the West End.
Point one was to force all the traffic to Main Street.
Right, to force all the traffic to Main Street. So that was a combination of potential temporary or permanent closures, things of that nature. What I heard from council was you're not interested in us introducing additional physical infrastructure in the West End at this point that would facilitate the redirection of that traffic.
I think
That was part of it?
My question is more, no one is really suggesting an all or nothing. Isn't there something in between?
Yes, Mike. So there was another question for us last night, and that was about other methods to alleviate some of that traffic. So we are looking at a few different solutions, whether that's some solutions on Cemetery Lane, perhaps prohibiting a left turn from Power Plant Road. Truly, that is impacting perhaps about 250 of the vehicles that pass through the West End. We also had discussions about potentially making the cemetery light during that hour a right turn only onto Highway 82 and not turning left, so that that light can maintain down valley traffic flows. So truly, we did come out of the meeting last night, Mike, with a couple of options that staff is going to go back at and look at potential implementation of.
I think it's also fair to say, Mr. Triplett, I think it's also fair to say that
Power Plant Road is 15 miles an hour.
Oh, you're red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people are going 25 miles an hour coming out the West End. And it would seem fairly logical just to make those two speed limits the same. I thought it was a great suggestion, and it was kind of steamrolled. But I would ask that you put that back on the possibilities.
Mr. Triplett, I do think that our council asked for other things to be looked at by our engineering department. Mayor Tory suggested the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. That has not been taken off the table. It's part of the things that they're continuing to look at. And I myself also said that while it's clear the longer-term solution to our community rests in its entrance and the overflow traffic that's roughly 30 to 40% daily leaving during those time periods, but that we should try to make whatever additional safety improvements that we can, whether it is additional stop signs or whatever, in the West End to try to manage the safety aspects of this going forward. But we don't have a magic third road to offer people to leave town. The statistics that I think were quite startling were that 1,800 cars a day are leaving during that time period, and that roughly the S-curves at the point of the Hickory House turn can only handle about 700 cars a day at that time, an hour, before it just gridlocks. We looked at additional ways of closing off access to the West End, and it ended up creating quite as much additional confusion and hassle for the residents there, because the backups will continue with people finding additional routes onto 82 and try to use the West End just to get another 3 blocks further into that traffic line, or 4 blocks later. There's a lot we can't do that doesn't just shift the problem onto other people and multiply that problem for everybody who's concerned with it now.
But the problem is just the people leaving, Rachel. It's the 1,800 cars exiting. It's not the other citizens of Aspen.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for your comments this evening. Like I said, there are some plans in the works. We have directed staff to look at some more solutions. Thank you so much for calling in.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Other members of the public for comments this evening? I'm going to look in the room now. Jeb, come on up.
I'll let the board pass this over. He's seen this, or at least a lengthened one. I ask, please don't be like my clients and flip the pages. Let me lead you through the pages. So I wanted to come and at least let the rest of the council members know what we presented in CCLC last Wednesday. And what you'll find is an abbreviated version of what Ward sat through last Wednesday. If you flip to page 2, here's some examples of how this is obviously on the topic of Galena Cooper Living Lab. Here's some representative photos of how the bike lanes have been used over the summer. If you turn to page 3, the executive summary, I'll just touch on a couple of things. We all know the lab started on July 2nd. At least from CCLC's perspective, there seemed to be a lack of a clearly defined issue that the Living Lab was seeking to solve. Yet we're all aware of the tragedy that it happened at the corner of Galena and Hyman. There's been certainly congestion in the core. Living Labs was implemented with limited outreach or input from the business community. The goals of the Living Lab from its own website confirmed that the business community was not part of the consideration set, just a subset of the pathway on the Living Lab. There's 36 businesses located between Maine and Cooper that generated $81 million in revenue, $1.9 million in sales tax for the city of Aspen on a TTM basis ending June 30th. I think that input should have been considered. The Living Lab team came and met with CCLC in mid-July, 13th to be exact. They asked each member of CCLC to contact 5 people to get specific feedback on the Living Lab. They asked us to determine the best communication method and to experience the lab from a different user perspective, pedestrian, motorist, cyclist. So CCLC worked with a handful of their local business owners and conducted face-to-face interviews with 190 businesses in the core, and we asked them 5 questions. If you flip the page, I won't read you what the Living Lab's goals were from their website. I think the takeaways in red, missing from any of the Living Lab's goals, in our perspective, was any consideration for local businesses. So what were our findings? If you flip to the next page, and I apologize that the pie charts are so small, but the slivers of people that responded in the affirmative, by and large, was almost not measurable. So the first question we asked was, do you believe the Living Labs project improves pedestrian biker safety in downtown Aspen? We asked 190 people, 189 said no, 1 said yes. I want to acknowledge that, oops, that's my timer. I'm up for 3 minutes. I would like to finish and say I do want to acknowledge we were asking people in the business community who hadn't been sought for their opinion, and I think there were a lot of emotionally charged responses to the questions. So I don't want to dodge that. None of the questions were leading, but I think, you know, after some period of time, maybe if we were to come back in October and ask the people, we might get a different response. We asked if the Living Lab was going to be a positive or negative to their business. 178 people of the 190 responded, and 177 said it was negative. 1 person said positive. We asked about the removal of the parking spaces in the core. 190 people jumped on that question, and 187 said no, they didn't support it. Last 2 questions, we asked about the conversion of Hyman into a one-way street between Hunter and Galena. There was a lot more sympathy for this particular part of the project. 23 people said yeah, they supported it, whereas 157 said no. And then lastly, do you support further removal of parking spaces in downtown Aspen? 2 people said yes, 167 said no. So you can clearly see that the feedback was negative about the project as of the time that we asked these questions. I'm not going to read the sampling of respondent comments that are on the next 2 pages. You can read them at your leisure. We received over 500 comments from people that we interviewed. And then the last page, seems to me that the overwhelming opinion from the business community is that the project has a negative aspect to it. We, CCLC, asked the Living Labs team to terminate the projects ahead of its September 26th date. We believe there's been sufficient data already collected, providing evidence that the Living Lab is not working for all of its stakeholders. And CCLC asked the Living Lab team to partner with CCLC, ACRA, Aspen Police, and other stakeholders to reimagine how parking in downtown Aspen could be reconfigured in order to support safety, mobility, and vibrancy in the core. I just wanted to make sure that all of you are aware of what we presented.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thanks. Thanks, Jeb. First, I want to make sure the record shows that this is Jeb Ball from CCLC, current chair.
Current chair, sorry to introduce myself before I started speaking.
Not a problem. Hey, I just want to say thank you. You know, this is a little bit more work than CCLC normally takes on, so I think that you guys just deciding to go out and do this was really great. I appreciate the input and the information that you've done, and taking your time to come here and present to us tonight as well. I just really appreciate the work you're doing on behalf of the community.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other members of the public for comment this evening? All right. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council table for council members' comments. John?
I think we're all pretty aware of the drought conditions in the western United States, and as I've mentioned, water's being rationed in Monterrey, Mexico, and Santiago, Chile. Europe's rivers are running dry. This is from The Guardian. Europe's rivers are running dry as scientists warn drought could be worse in 500 years. In places, the Loire River can be crossed on foot. France's longest river has never flowed so slowly. The Rhine is fast becoming impassable to barge traffic. In Italy, the Po is 2 meters lower than normal. Serbia is dredging the Danube just so they can ship grain. And right now in China, they're experiencing a record heat wave that's the worst in 60 years, which is in Sichuan, home to 80 million people and a manufacturing center. The heat wave has exacerbated an ongoing drought. Water levels are at 50% in area of the country where they are dependent upon hydro for 80% of their energy. With consumers using more energy to stay cool, much like the American Southwest, they're turning up their air conditioners and using more energy. As a result, officials in China announced August 15th that factories in 19 cities and prefectures would be forced to shut down for 5 days to reserve electricity for, quote, use by the people, unquote. These droughts are getting more commonplace and more frequent and hotter. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Skippy, comments this evening?
I did not have comments, but I just want to say thank you as well to CCLC members who are here and everyone on the board. I think this is a ton of work. We are extremely well served as a community by citizens rolling up their sleeves and getting involved at the grassroots level. It's a lab, and we're looking for feedback, and this is it, and it's pretty clear. So I thank you for that, and I am really gratified by this last bullet point of partnering together with others to reimagine parking in the downtown core. I think that is necessary. I don't think the solutions are obvious, and I think we'll be better doing it together, so I just really want to applaud and support that.
Thanks, Skippy. This end, comments?
Yeah, I have no comments. I did sit through the CCLC meeting where this is presented, and it's pretty evident what the outcome is.
Yeah. Thank you. You know, I just want to talk for a moment about the potential of wildfire, which we gratefully have had some torrential rains, and is probably not at the top of everyone's minds right now. But as we head into the fall and as we head into next spring, it's a time to really pay attention to the home ignition zone. And have you had a chance to really clear enough brush around your house so that when there is a fire, there's dispensable space for the fire trucks to actually get in and work on saving your home? We've all been familiar with the fire that happened in the Boulder Superior area last year. And at the spring conference from CML, the one emphasis that the mayor of that town made was how few of his homeowners had enough insurance to be able to rebuild, and that most of them were lucky to have 65% of the cost of rebuilding a home in today's environment. And that's just something I wanted to emphasize for our community as well, and he asked us all to take that message home. Most people think, well, I'll have a small fire in the kitchen or something, and the fire department will get there and they'll put it out. But they don't think about losing their entire home and having to rebuild from nothing. And we have a lot of decadent, overgrown fuels throughout our community, whether it's on the edge of Aspen municipal boundaries, whether it is all of Red Mountain, which has one road up and one road out. And the last time there was an emergency evacuation plan for Red Mountain, it was to go to the old Wexner Ranch and wait for a helicopter to pick you up out of the meadow. So there are real concerns with wildfire going forward, and the time to make your plans and hire the crews to be able to work on your yard and around your house are in the fall and in the spring. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel. My comments this evening. The Living Lab, we will actually be discussing that later on our agenda tonight. The lab has about run its course, and we are looking for those changes that we're going to be making going into the fall. When it comes to the West End traffic, Council did have a meeting about it last night, and as I said just a moment ago, we are looking at some interim solutions to alleviate some of that peak hour traffic. Obviously, as we move into the fall, we're going to see a little bit less of that as these peak visitation days are being numbered and coming to an end. But we are looking at some solutions. This is a proactive and responsive council, and we hope to stay that way. We're looking at solutions for our community. For me, my comments this evening are really one, I want to announce the Mayor's Cup Golf Tournament, which is coming Friday, September 16th. It is a Friday golf event. It is not a shotgun start. It is throughout the entire day. So availability for tee times is throughout the entire day. This year, the beneficiaries of the Mayor's Cup will be Aspen Strong and the Hope Center. Again, the focus is on mental health in our community. As I like to say here every once in a while, you know, it's okay to get help or to talk with somebody. So if you or anybody you know needs a little helping hand these days, the Hope Center at 925-5858 is a great local resource for those that might need somebody to talk to or get some direction about that, as well as aspenstrong.org, another great resource where you can find some counseling opportunities, and truly some of those are free and of no charge. So all you have to do is go onto the website at aspenstrong.org and look for those resources and that help. Again, it is okay these days to be looking for help and have somebody to talk to. If you or anybody needs that help, please get them to the right places. I'm looking for agenda amendments. We have none this evening. And that brings us to City Manager's comments tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. A few quick things for you. First, I wanted to let you know I spent quite a bit of time with CDOT this afternoon, specifically on entrance to Aspen. And so getting some initial conversations going about how they see a process going forward on their end, what kind of expectations they would have of our community in order to engage with them. So I think that was a productive first start. We have a lot more work to do. And we'll start taking a look at perhaps how does CDOT engage with the council directly. We are waiting for an upcoming bridge inspection report on the Castle Creek Bridge because it is due this month, and I think that might be a telling piece of information to understand our timeline. The other thing a couple other things I wanted to bring up to council is this past, I always struggle about whether you want me to do this here or under committee reports, but the Aspen Airport Advisory Board met last week on Thursday. Thursday was a update on the FBO selection process. If you're not aware that the airport is going through a contract renewal for that and has received proposals for that work. And then secondly, there's a pretty in-depth review of the Federal Aviation Administration's operations at the airport, including some of the nuances of our airport that are very different than any other airport I've ever been engaged with, we'll say. But it was really valuable to look at both what are some of the limiting factors on both plane type and on timing issues, and on really the issues of our limited airspace here in Aspen and how that's affecting customer satisfaction when you can't land and there's not space for you to circle in the Aspen airspace. For the most part, there's a little bit of room right over the city of Aspen and a little bit of room right over the town of Snowmass, but it fills up quickly. So I will forward those slides on to council from the FAA just for your own perusal. I think you might find the information interesting. I did want to remind council that you've agreed to special meetings on August 29th and September 6th as you continue to deliberate on the short-term rental tax ballot question. We have both of those meetings scheduled to start at 4 p.m.
So, question, should we perhaps start the one on the 6th earlier than 4? I mean, it would give us more time in case there is an issue. That's all I'm wondering.
It's all 4 hours to me, so you tell me which 4 you want in the day, and we'll make it happen.
I don't know what else was potentially on that agenda. If that's the
Nothing.
only thing on that Tuesday, I would understand.
The only other thing may be, it's a special meeting. I think the mayor is still contemplating one other item for the agenda that we need to,
Talk about.
he doesn't have a definitive
Okay.
position on yet. So those are coming up. And then, one of the things that I noticed today with the Mountain Partnership that I just wanted to check in with the council on is I thought the event started on Tuesday, not Monday. And I see there's a Monday evening event that some of you or all of you may wish to attend. That is when we had scheduled the lumberyard final review. So I expect it to be a pretty technical and detailed discussion. I wanted to check in with you from a scheduling standpoint, we need to gauge the council's interest in participating in the Mountain Partnership meetings as observers and the timing of that. These are, because we're going into budget season, this is a meeting we need to keep that week. So either having your work session earlier in the day to make you available to attend in the evening, or scheduling it for a different evening that week. I will tell you it would be much easier with the consultants we have involved to do it earlier in the same day. But if you could please provide some input to the mayor so that he can give me direction on how to handle that work session.
Okay.
That would be fabulous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was laughing because I like the way you said that we agreed to the special meetings. I appreciate that. Yes, we did. That'll bring us down to board reports. Board reports this evening. This is an opportunity just for a brief update.
I would let Skippy handle APCHA if he wants to. He always has better notes than I do. We did not discuss, we mostly spent the session in executive session, I think is the best way to describe it. There might be a few other things. We have booted the discussion about AMI, area medium income, until the next meeting, and it was interesting to see some of the research that Matthew started to do on that topic, changing AMI standards or percentage of the average medium income bumps people either out of or into different categories than they were expecting in the past. And so it's not just an easy change. But Matthew, the director, had done some work with Snowmass, and oddly enough, they don't even have categories. They just have some pricing on the units, and I think there's a lot of details to work around that, but he did suggest we might want to take a look at that model and maybe migrate our system to that. So that's about the longest details I have on that. Skippy may have more to fill in.
Yeah, and just, I didn't even have that on my notes. That's great. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Snowmass model. I certainly wasn't, but it's not as though there are no categories, and so everyone gets the same thing. It's relative to your income, so it's more of a sliding scale. Other things, so we reviewed retrospectively the 2021-2022 work plan, what we did and didn't accomplish from that. That document is available from the packet. It's worth a look, I think. It represents a lot of good work and a lot of work yet uncompleted. We did a draft of the 2022-2023 work plan, which is a high-level document. The final one's going to be coming back at our next meeting for approval of the board. But it will include big picture things like right-sizing, capital repairs, capital reserves, the things that we know that we've been working on. And then in the executive director comments, things that I think will be of interest, the program that we greenlit in collaboration with CoA as part of the new deed restriction, which lifts the limit on capital improvements for green stuff, has 130 inquiries already in, 67 completed assessments, and these are just for the mini grants, and we're going to be moving to the next step, which is bigger projects like heating systems. So really great interest in that, which I thought was really great. We now have 600 followers on Facebook, which is up from, I thought the fun note, 0 in February. So we're making progress on our outreach in both languages as well. And our communication continues to improve, including biannual-ish email newsletters, and there's a new one for back to school coming out soon.
Thank you. The only other thing I would mention is that upcoming are the Club 20 fall meeting. They meet twice a year with the full membership. And an election year, they have debates. And so they will be having debates all day Saturday the 10th for literally every higher state seat or federal seat in Colorado. We've not had a commitment yet from Senator Bennett. We have heard from Governor Polis that he is not planning on attending. And I do have to say it's really very frustrating for me personally that you spend decades going to public meetings to discuss programs and policies, or 12 years with the National Association of Counties and Colorado Counties, Inc., to be able to talk about the different value systems that we all have. And I'm one person within Club 20, as others have, though more of a minority, to say, hey, we think the CORE Act, Colorado Outdoor Recreational Economy Act, is a great thing. But then to hear that our own reps are not necessarily concerned about representing those same values on the West Slope leads a lot of people to believe they just feel like they can get elected from the Front Range, and hearing from the West Slope or West Slope concerns doesn't matter. And that's just very frustrating. So I have to say that. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
CCLC, you've been fully briefed on that meeting.
Yeah. Good outsourcing. Thank you.
Thanks. No board reports from me tonight.
None for me either.
Okay. That'll bring us down to our consent calendar. The consent calendar tonight is resolution number 98, a civil and electrical design from Paepcke Park to City Market replacement, and a board and commission appointment. Items to be pulled this evening. I'm actually going to ask for a little bit more information on this design. So if I could get somebody just to briefly discuss this. Mostly I really just want public awareness of this project and what its implications and what it means are. I don't have any questions about the design, or I just want people to know what's coming.
Great. So this is the second phase of a replacement project. Over the next 15 years, we are replacing the entirety of the city's electric system.
Say that again, please.
Over the next 15 years, we are replacing the entirety of the city's electric system. It is approaching the end of its useful life. So this is the second project. The first project, you'll note, is taking place in and around the Red Brick right now. Right now, we're constructing it right outside of Carl's Pharmacy. We are installing a cable and conduit system which will serve us well into the future as it facilitates easy construction and pulling of new wire when there is an outage, rather than digging and having larger community disturbance. So this project, we can pull up the map, which was in the, it is page 39, if we could pull that up. This shows where the design impacts will be, where the construction will occur in 24 and 25. For 23, we are completing the rest of the red brick circuit, which we're doing half of this year.
And like I said, this is a multi-year project that is going to be for the benefit of our community. Often, several times a year, we have brownouts, as they're called, or whatever. Just a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact, in my alleyway, we had an electrical fire that had to be dug up, and a lot of concern. One thing I'd ask of you, is there anything that individuals, whether it's businesses or homeowners or anybody on the private side, is there anything that they should be doing or can do that also helps this work or partners in with this?
One great aspect of this project is that it's occurring at the same time that AMI is occurring. So while we're replacing all of the electric meters system-wide, we have an opportunity to look at the customer's secondary, and we get a chance to determine what shape that secondary is in. The secondary is owned by the customer, so there's not a ton that they can do outside of hiring an electrician and doing a full research of the system in place. As far as what they can be doing, be prepared for disturbance in the alleys. We're going to be digging them up and installing here over the next years. There will be disturbance. It is going to be construction.
Yeah. Any other questions from council?
Well,
You mean we're a real town and we have to rebuild things and fix them when they break and stuff?
I like to think so.
I swear I saw Jerry now holding a sign by Carl's today during construction.
What's that?
Jerry Nye, our streets. I swear I saw him holding a sign.
It was not Jerry.
Good.
I can assure you it was not. I have it on very, very credible sources that Jerry was not in town today. He had some other things to take care of.
Well, yeah, it is.
The traffic control company, that guy does look a lot like Jerry.
Yeah, thank you, Tori, for bringing this to the public's attention. Oftentimes, these consent calendar approvals are very important infrastructure actions and expenditures, and they go below the radar of the general public. And so in the next couple of years, while the public is seeing this disturbance, know that it's because we want to, and the utilities want to, deliver electricity when you turn on the switch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
With that, I could accept a motion for the consent calendar.
I move we adopt the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote for the consent calendar?
Councillor Doyle,
Yes.
Councillor Howenstein,
Yes.
Councillor Mesereau,
Yes.
Councillor Richards,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. And tonight we have first reading of ordinances. Ordinance number 10. This is the Willoughby Pond Subdivision Water Service Agreement.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Tyler Kristoff, Utilities Director. I'm also here with Kate Johnson, the Assistant City Attorney. And behind me I have the applicant, John Buxbaum, and his representative, Jim Curtis. We are in front of you tonight for first reading of Ordinance 10, Series of 2022. This ordinance contains an extraterritorial water service agreement for the Willoughby Pond subdivision. I'll briefly highlight a few important details of this agreement and ordinance for Council's consideration. 2 of the 6 lots in this subdivision currently receive city water services and have so for almost 30 years. The subdivision is surrounded on all sides by lots served by city water, and existing city water infrastructure is prevalent in the area. The applicants have requested a more formal agreement for water service from the city as they intend to develop an additional lot in this subdivision. Staff has been working with the applicant for more than 2 years to negotiate the details of this agreement. The applicant has agreed to a number of conditions that staff believes demonstrate a larger community benefit and allow staff to support this request. These conditions include no net increase over existing ECU allocation of the system capacity for this subdivision, payment of all applicable city mitigation fees, including affordable housing, parks, school lands, TDMs, which can be found on page 136 of your packet. This subdivision has agreed to construction of water mains and associated infrastructure to improve the Aspen community's water system for the broader community. Along with this comes the dedication of easements on the subject property. All lots in the subdivision would comply with water efficient landscape ordinance, and no outdoor water use of potable supplies would be permitted within the subdivision. And then finally, the water rights that the subdivision the applicant currently holds would subordinate to the city's interests in Hunter Creek in the in-stream flow during times of low flow. So as I mentioned, we're here tonight for first reading and here to answer any questions council may have on this ordinance.
Questions this evening?
It looked like you did a very thorough job of negotiating, Tyler.
Thank you, Rachel. We had good applicants to work with as well.
Was there anything that you had hoped for to see in this agreement that was a stumbling block that is not in the agreement?
Not that comes to mind. I think generally the city holds a resource, the potable water resource, that these extraterritorial customers see value in. And so the negotiations, while lengthy, I think we got to reasonable terms for both the applicant and for the broader community.
Okay. The other question I have is, I think everyone's aware the city only has a limited storage supply, and we are at some point looking towards a reservoir to secure our future in water. Should we have continued or worsening severe drought before we have that sort of backup, is there, does everyone in our system get cut back equally, or do extraterritorials get cut back first? I just can't remember, because I know we were feeding water to to Starwood at some point in time as well.
Yeah, we don't currently have any customers that far down valley. Starwood is not currently within our water service territory.
Red Mountain.
Yeah, we certainly serve on Red Mountain. Reaching kind of the limits of our finite resource, we would certainly cut back or eliminate extraterritorial water services before we would consider that for customers within the city. One reason we were able to consider this application is because there's no net increase of ECUs requested here, and that is unique for this applicant, for this subdivision, and that's ultimately, as staff, what allowed us to come to City Council and make a recommendation and move this ordinance in front of you.
Thank you.
This is first reading, so we need a motion to read.
I move we read ordinance 10, series 2022 on first reading.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote for reading of ordinance number 10?
Councillor Doyle?
Yes.
Councillor Howenstein?
Yes.
Councillor Mesereau?
Yes.
Councillor Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes.
Ordinance number 10, series of 2022, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aspen, Colorado, approving a water service agreement with the owner of Willoughby Ponds subdivision for provision of treated water service outside the city limits.
Thank you. Tori, I have
Go right ahead.
one or two more small questions. Just for background, are the ponds naturally occurring there, or are they created ponds?
I believe the ponds are fed through the Laughlin and overflow ditches, and I believe some of the water in that area is from some natural springs. I'd let John or Jim chime in if they feel differently.
You have to come to the microphone if you're going to say anything.
Jim Curtis. Surprisingly, I've actually been involved with that property since 1983. I took it through the county subdivision in 1985, and I was involved with Matthew and Kay Bucksbaum when they purchased the property in 1988. Prior to that time, Gary Cooper owned the property in the 50s and 60s, As far as I know, the ponds are natural. They are fed by some water from Hunter Creek and some groundwater. I've been told that in the 1890s, the ponds were actually used to cut ice for Aspen. And so as far as they are not man-made in any fashion.
Thank you. Do you know, are there water rights associated with the flow through? And it's just that Tyler had mentioned some water rights potential on Hunter
There's
Creek.
water rights associated with the ponds. And first, I would like to say Tyler did negotiate a very good deal. But to answer your question, the water rights have been used on the property to irrigate the property, and no treated water has been used to irrigate the property. And Tyler insisted that the water from the pond continue to irrigate the property, and no treated water would be used to irrigate the property. And the Bucksbaums have agreed to that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, and it's just my broader water curiosity and water interest, and you just keep hearing more and more about how they're cutting back on augmentation ponds and double checking the rights of everyone, and yanking fixtures out of people's facilities if they don't have their rights all lined up.
Okay. We did some significant research, not only with the applicant, but our own water council, to ensure that we felt like those water rights were secure. And traditionally, when we have an applicant approach us with this, we typically ask those water rights be dedicated to the city. In this case, there was not a way that the city could efficiently put those to beneficial use, but the property owner could. So this agreement was worked out similar to an adjacent subdivision, the Ruby subdivision, and we feel like it's in the best interest of the Hunter Creek aquifer. So,
Thank you. I appreciate the background.
Thank you.
I would make a motion to approve on first reading.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I just have I know it's beyond our control, but I would just love to see, I know a beautiful home is going to go in this location and see zero scaping and as little water usage as possible. I understand that it will comply with our landscaping, but it is outside the city, and just put this on the consciousness of the developers and the owners.
We've agreed to comply with the city's efficient landscaping program.
Yeah, I heard that. Thank you.
Could we have a roll call vote for ordinance number 10 on first reading?
Councillor Doyle?
Yes.
Councillor Howenstein?
Yes.
Councillor Mazzaro?
See.
Councillor Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good to see you, Jim.
Yeah.
That brings us down to our action items. First item up is Resolution 101. This is the half-penny open space sales tax renewal.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, my name's Austin Weiss. I'm the Parks and Rec Director for the City of Aspen. And with me tonight, I've got Matt Kuhn, our Parks and Open Space Director. We're circling back from our recent work session on August 1st with a resolution that reflects the ballot language for an extension of the half-cent open space tax. And as we discussed back on the first, we're suggesting a simple extension of the existing ballot language in perpetuity. And this also includes a number of whereas clauses that reflect the intent and purpose of this tax, along with some of the history of what the most recent tax has provided our community. And Matt and I are simply here to answer any questions you might have at this time.
Questions at this time?
I have no questions at this time. Thank you guys for your work.
And this will be the only hearing on this item. After we pass this, it will be to the clerks to get to the ballot.
We know them.
Yes, that is correct. This is a resolution that would place it on the ballot. And once it's on the ballot, depending on what that outcome is, it may come back to you for passage pursuant to the vote. My understanding is. so if the voters approve it, I still think there
yeah.
needs to be an ordinance that solidifies the vote. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a second reading. The only thing I really kind of got from reading through the resolution was a lot of discussion of the past work, which the half penny has done for us greatly, but it was a little lean on future. It just said to maintain and keep up what we have. And I don't know, I guess the resolution doesn't matter that much in terms of the things that the community's asking, whether it's safer trails and access to the school or, dog parks that are missing in neighborhoods or areas or things like that. You're just going to leave that pretty wide open.
Well, certainly the intent is to continue to provide those amenities for the community, and a number of those opportunities have yet to be identified. And so as those projects come down the pike in the future, some of them, which will be quite large, may require bonding authority that we would go back to the voters for those larger ticket projects. But and certainly there are a number of open space properties that we still have on our radar that we would like to acquire.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I don't want more specifics, and I wouldn't hold this up for that, but I just wanted to make sure that our intent was as future-looking as it is congratulatory towards the past. Thank you. I wish you great luck with this. Yeah. Are we ready for a motion?
I am.
I move we adopt
101.
Resolution 101, Series 2022, half-penny sales tax for open space.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? I'll have a little further discussion. First of all, I want to say thank you to you and your staff across Parks, Open Space, and Rec for doing an amazing job this summer. Just yesterday, Sarah and I were kind of having a meeting, and I was looking out over Rio Grande, and I couldn't help but comment just, first of all, how great it looks currently. But with the weather that we've had, grass has been growing at a greater rate than maybe we've been able to handle. And your staff and your team has done an amazing job of maintaining this park, Wagner Park, out on the trail, just everywhere. And I know that you're short-staffed. I know that you're strained in your department, and I just want to give you kudos, and please pass that on to everybody that's working for you, because they are out there working hard, and it shows.
Thank you, Mayor. We certainly agree with you. We couldn't be more proud of the staff. And yes, we are running on a light crew, and it's amazing the passion that they come to work with every day. So.
And then the second thing I want to say is that not only am I going to vote yes, affirmative on this resolution this evening, but I will be there to be encouraging all voters to reaffirm this half penny for open space. It is a sales tax, which means that residents and visitors alike pay into this. It is a community amenity that we need, we want. It has a lot of support, but we always need to make sure that people show up and vote for this. And this is something that I'll be out there making sure that they know that it has my full support. So. With that, we have a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call vote for Resolution 101?
Councillor Doyle?
Yes.
Councillor Howenstein?
Yes.
Councillor Mazzaro?
Yes.
Councillor Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes.
There you go. You're off and running.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Next item up is Resolution 102, Aspen Public House Lease Amendment.
Brought my glasses in case you make me read the lease. We have room? Here. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Diane Foster, Assistant City Manager, and I will let the folks at the table introduce themselves, starting with Lisa Rigsby-Peterson.
Lisa Rigsby-Peterson, the Executive Director of the Wheeler Opera House. Good evening, Mayor, members of Council.
Hey, Lisa.
Bill Johnson, owner of Aspen Public House.
And I'm Raphael Dowdy.
This evening, before you is a question on the lease of the restaurant space at the Wheeler Opera House. The request is from Bill Johnson to approve the transfer of 51% of Elk Mountain Hospitalities to Raphael with the intent of that a new restaurant would come into being in that space. The current lease allows up to 25% of that ownership to be transferred, and without that, the lease does make a provision that the lessee can come to City Council and make a request. Let me just briefly go through the pros and cons of this. That can be found on page 143 of your packet. Reasons to consider this request would be there's a minimal disruption in service as compared to going out for a new RFP. There's, as you all know, there's a lot of trouble hiring staff, and a new operator may be able to hire more staff and be open for lunch. And thirdly, in today's economic environment, you never know what you're going to get if you put out an RFP, if we actually would get a new applicant. And reasons that council may want to consider if considering denying this request would be that the percentage of ownership that is being requested is double what's allowed in the lease without the consent of council. The current operator, if the current operator is no longer interested in operating at this location, it may be more fair to other operators for the city to issue an RFP rather than allowing what is functionally a private sale. And thirdly, in the community survey, as you well know, lack of affordable dining options was one of the top community concerns. So if the current operator decides to give up his lease, or should council want to make changes to it or propose changes to it, it may be possible to find a lessee that could produce an even more affordable menu, especially if the city wanted to offer more favorable terms in the lease. Thank you.
Any questions from council at this time?
And I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Bill's prepared to make a presentation to give council more information. Sorry, I should have mentioned that.
Okay.
I think everyone has the packet that I prepared, and that covers all the high-level information. There are other details, specific menu things and design that we have people in place. We just haven't wanted to pay a retainer for an architect or a design firm and stuff like that until we get a go-ahead from council. But if there are any concerns or any specific questions, I'm happy to address those today.
Okay. Skippy and then Rachel.
Yeah, well, first I just wanted to say for the record and transparency, Rob's my next door neighbor. We live on the same property, talked it over with the city attorney, and we feel like I can be objective in that fact moving forward in this decision. So I just wanted to first have that on the record. I do have some questions, but they primarily revolve around why this is coming up now. And, I don't know how much background we have, but in my mind as a community, we've been looking for, good, desirable, affordable food. Public House is delivering that, not delivering it all the time, which is a staffing issue. I'm not sure how a change in management will or will not affect the availability of employees, but I'm interested in understanding more of the backstory of if we have what we want, why are we coming forward to make a change?
Absolutely, and so I provided a personal memo, which I think was included, that kind of outlines the reasons why at this point in my life and my career it makes sense. I'm getting married in October. Restaurant management isn't conducive to family pursuits and spending a lot of time. I've also moved down to Carbondale. I no longer live 7 blocks from the restaurant. So that kind of outline, that's why at this point it seems like it would be a wise move for myself. Additionally, I'm in no way am I wanting to step away from the public house or the restaurant industry or this. I love the lease that I have. I love the location, and I love the restaurant that we've built. But at this point in my career, it's more Raphael has a tremendous amount of experience, and so being able to team up with somebody and work on a project together, and I think be able to put something together that's better for the community than what I could just do on my own. And things like getting back to lunch, how would bringing on a partner help me staff lunch? So much of how I hire is word of mouth. Advertising just has never really worked, and so being able to, double that capacity with having someone else who's worked in the industry here in Aspen as an owner for years, I think would give us a better shot at being able to hire for lunch. And then even things like the menu that we want to propose will help us with maybe getting back to a lunch service and a more executable menu that isn't quite as labor intensive as what I'm doing at the public house now. And certainly with the affordability. And that's something that I think the last thing I would do is strip away any of the affordability from what I'm doing. My background is kind of blue collar and tavern restaurants, and I'm not looking to really change that too much. But I think if looking at the menu that we have worked on collectively, if anything, I think it might expand, the affordability in terms of the amount of options, under $20, stuff like that.
And so this is really a working and operational partnership opportunity for you as opposed to an exit and...
Correct. Yeah. The public house and the restaurant has been my sole source of revenue for a while. I sold my other restaurant, Capitol Creek, a while ago, so I'm down to just this location. I have no ambitions to pursue another restaurant project. And I think being able to just expand, share both the responsibilities, the operational risks, as well as the success with somebody at this point seems to make the most sense. So.
Okay. I'll listen to these other questions before I ask more.
Thanks. Rachel?
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask, you referenced that the menu will be 75% roughly appetizers, and that will be, so therefore they'll be mostly under $20. But it just strikes me that is that affordable that you have an appetizer, which is not a particularly big thing, for $20. I mean, this isn't like a...
So we're going to keep the locals burger. So at the public house, and I meant to bring a copy of the menu that we've been serving for a while. So you had a comparison, because there's really not much disparity as far as quantities and cost go with what I'm currently doing. But I think we did a locals burger when we first opened, and it's a $13 burger. It's a quarter pound, local beef. I took that off the print menu about 2 years ago, because we would have affluent tourists coming into town, and they would just, the next thing I know, it was killing our ticket averages. But we still have that business. People will still come in and order that off-menu item. I think it's serving its purpose now. So things like that are going to stay, like the locals burger. We do a shot and a beer special for $7. That's going to stay put. And then I think relative to Aspen, it's going to be a lot of value. But we do want to, part of the reason for the tapas isn't just a concept with a more elegant appearance. It's because they're easier to execute in a high volume kitchen. And that's where I'm struggling now, is the menu that I'm putting out is just a labor intensive menu. And that's part of why I'm not open for lunch. To open for lunch, I still have to have 3 line cooks and a dishwasher. And if we can come up with the concept that's faster service, faster plates that we can operate, that we can execute with less people, because it's more prep intensive rather than production, I think that'll help alleviate some of the labor issues that I've been facing and be able to serve a higher volume of people, and thus hopefully generating more revenue.
Thank you. The challenge I'm having is a little bit that third con of, is it a private sale of someone who'd like to leave their business per se, and appropriately so, we don't have any of the details of what your share of ownership that you're selling is worth. But what I ask is a little more to staff's end here. How long would this lease go for in terms, if it's granted today, including the automatic renewals or an ability to require automatic renewals?
I can...
The term of the current lease is till next year, and then there's an option for 5 years.
And then one option after that. So, and I hope I've remained in good faith with the contract in the city, and my goal has always been to exercise all the options going out to 2033.
Right. So that's the only thing. And again, it's not to you guys specifically as much as an action of government and one of its key assets to say that this decision tonight will lock that up till 2033, essentially, unless there's some sort of huge major meltdown or something.
In my name, I mean, I'm still going to be a tenant, and, Elk Mountain Hospitality will still be the leaseholder.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember when the lease was granted, and my question is along Rachel's line, that the 5-year extensions, are those mutually that the city can agree or not agree, or is it just an automatic extension?
While hopefully one of our attorneys is looking it up, my recollection from negotiating this is it is at the tenant's option.
It is what?
My recollection from the negotiations was that this is at the tenant's option. It is not a mutual. It is a tenant option.
That's correct.
There we go.
People hear me? This is Jim Tripp.
Yep, got you, Jim.
Yes. Sorry, Jim, I can remember at least from 5 years ago, but I struggled with what we did last night.
It gives me pause because we're transferring 50% of community asset or community operation and extending it for 10 and a half years or close to somewhere around 10 and a half years. So from one side, I'm thinking, well, this is transferring to a whole new business that we should have an RFP. And my initial thought was, well, if it's a 5-year extension by both parties' agreement, that we'd have a good opportunity to find out how this is going to operate under this new agreement, which I would really favor if it was a mutually agreed upon. But if it's a tenant-only agreement, it just gives me pause, and it's an area of concern for me. If we get into something that just doesn't seem to be working, we're basically stuck with another 10 years.
And certainly, and to just address that, I think, as briefly as I can, once again, if we don't get approval for the consent of the asset transfer today or the portion of the business, I contend I'm fully committed to staying where I'm at and operating the business. This is just an opportunity for me, I think, to kind of split the workload, what I've had previously.
And I appreciate that, and congratulations on your life change. Would you be acceptable to, at the termination on April 30th, 23, to go through a review and approval with the city and with an automatic extension 5 years after that, so that it gives us an opportunity to see how it's working, and if it's really not working, that we could look for changes in the lease, or I'm just looking for assurances that this is going to work for the community.
I would hope that the assurance kind of moving forward is I'm still retaining half ownership of the business and am invested in the success. It's absolutely necessary for my own financial independence moving forward. And I have enough faith in Raphael as a business partner that I'm willing to bet my professional career and reputation on the success of this business.
And I appreciate that, but we're betting for the community as well.
I mean, the only thing I really just am not aware of, because I wasn't here for the first negotiations or everything, and certainly your restaurant has a good reputation. There's no question about that. But what recourse would the city have if 18 months from now it's $40 entrees and the appetizers are now $30? Is there anything in the contract that would be able to pull us back, no matter who owns it, related to the terms of the agreement for the service and for the purpose of some affordable dining?
So I think the assurances are the contract that I have with the city with the lease. So if I breach that contract, the city, then I don't have a right to option unless the city allows me to. So I only have guaranteed options if I don't breach my contract. And in the lease, affordability and concept, it's on page 22. Tenant agrees the concept, affordability, and delivery of consistent product and experience will continue throughout this entire lease period and any renewals as evidenced by the attached proposed menus. I didn't print off the rest of the 100-page proposal that is attached to the lease, but I actually nostalgically looked through the menus that I proposed back in 2018, and despite inflationary pressure, we're really not that far from where we were then. And the menu that we put in the packet today, I think, too, is representative of a continuation of this.
That's very helpful.
Sure.
I just wanted to know, as again, I was not here for the former negotiations on this lease.
May I add to that, Mr. Mayor? So this was one of the most challenging portions, actually, of this lease because, if you recall, there used to be a guaranteed menu requirement with a leasee prior to Elk Mountain. And what we've done is really fostered a relationship. And as those menu concepts change, there is a check-in process with the executive director of the Wheeler, and then if necessary with the manager's office to say, is it still in the spirit and of intent of that? But it was pretty difficult to nail down a black and white, where's the tipping point? Is it a $12 burger? Is it an $18 burger, a $30 burger? Because you can find them all in town right now. Right. And that was really the approach we took to it. The second thing I would say is if the council this is definitely a negotiable item for the council, and ensuring that you feel that if you agree to this, that it's in the community's best interest. What I would suggest is that you check with the applicant whether he's interested in negotiating with staff, and then we will find a mechanism for you to provide negotiation parameters to staff, rather than negotiating it all here at the table if there are significant hesitations.
Okay, thank you for that, Sarah.
I just kind of want to talk out loud of my thinking as we go through this, and feel free to, any of you guys, to jump in at any point. In my mind, we have two proven operators sitting in front of us that deliver a quality product. I literally recommend Public House more than anything else to both friends coming into town and clients of our vacation rental business because it's genuinely good and it's genuinely affordable. If Curry disappears, I'm going to be very sad. It's another conversation. Roth obviously has been in project here before that's amazing. Not necessarily associated with affordable, but probably the most charming spot in all of Aspen. Like, there's just no question that you can run a great operation. We then get into this weird space where there's a government partner, and it provides complexities that are not always helpful for the business, but we have to be mindful of the community output. And the affordability is a really big thing. And in a traditional business environment, when there's a sale, there's a cost for that sale. You've built a business, you deserve to profit off of that, and you should. And you got a new kid to pay for and all the rest of it, and that's great. But when you take an affordable business and ticket price, and you add the sale price of a business, and then you add the cost of a remodel, things get more expensive. They have to. And you've got to be able to make money too, otherwise what are you doing here? And so the concern is that we just continually tread away from the initial intent. And the menu looks great, right? And it might be great, but we don't know, or I guess I should take ownership, maybe you guys know. I don't know if I've got to go in and order 5 of those tapas to be full and I've got a $100 ticket, right? And that's just a totally different universe from the, great $25 lunch or $35 to $40 hearty dinner that we have now. And so how can we how do we feel comfortable that this awesome operator is delivering a product that reflects the overall affordability that frankly you've proven and we've come to expect? That's the nut that I don't quite have enough of a handle on.
Would you like me to
100%
on that? So that is like how does this make sense financially for myself and for Raphael? Part of what Raphael is bringing to the table is at the Public House. I've evolved a lot over the years, with the menu and the concept, different chefs. My current chef actually is leaving the business at the end of September. He's from Indonesia and he's going back. I think he's going back to Bali. So there is one, I think the menu concept I'm going to address regardless on my own or with Raphael, because what I get a lot at the restaurant is 60% of our sales right now come from the bar, whether it's cocktails, beer, or wine, the majority of that being cocktails and then some beer. And we have a lot of people coming in who are having a couple of drinks and then they have a reservation elsewhere. And I'm certainly not trying to imitate some of the higher end restaurants around me, but I think trying to create a tapas menu that's a little bit more appealing, that gets more of our customers who are already in the restaurant buying food. You know, food revenue is just something that I can increase, not by increasing prices, but just by increasing the amount of people who are already in my establishment ordering food. And then like right now, for like wine sales, make up about 5 or 6% of my gross sales. If I can increase, if we can put a menu out where people have that option, they're more comfortable buying wine, and not necessarily expensive wine. If you look at my wine list right now, the majority of my bottles are under $100, which is affordable beyond any measure in this town. We're trying to expand on that. So I'm looking at the areas, I'm looking at my P&L and my sales reports, and I'm like, our cocktail program is amazing. We're not going to touch that aspect of the business, but I would like to just have higher frequency of like more food sales by just getting more people to buy food who are in the restaurant. So, and I think Raphael has a lot of ideas about the creative side of the culinary world to help me do that.
Yeah, I mean, and I can certainly understand the construct in which you're talking, in which the type of food and atmosphere that Raf has brought to town can sort of, fill in the boulders with sand, right, from a revenue standpoint. Where I start to get a little concerned is when we hear things like relative to the Aspen market. And I understand that's how you have to benchmark things, but, the Aspen restaurant market is catering to the top 100% of people that are tourists with $250 pre-alcohol prices right now, right? And what we're charged with is sort of making sure there's an opportunity for the workers of this town to still have a place to gather, to be part of the commercial center. And, we're still making category 2 and 3 wages.
That's accurate.
So, but that makes sense to me, and I appreciate it. I'm just thinking out loud.
Right on. John, any questions or comments at this time?
Well, I guess, I don't know if we can change this, but I don't know. It's just interesting to me that the current owner is selling 51% of the business, which means Mr. Durley will now be in control when it comes down to brass tacks. The other thing I struggle with is, if we allow this to go forward, I'm going to hear about it from some restaurateurs who would love to bid on this restaurant.
Already have.
So that's an issue that I'm struggling with right now.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, it's not about either of you as people, but there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with this. And the one thing I've been thinking of little is, why did the previous council put in that 25% transfer rule, that it can't be more? And there had to have been a reason to want to ensure the longer term benefits of the type of restaurant that we wanted to have in there and gathering place. And that is the one thing I thought about, which I have no real sense of the real estate market right now, commercial real estate leasing. But, how far below market are we on our lease? And should we, the market seems to have exploded in recent years with some of the people who've leased or bought Pinions and some of these other places. But is the affordability of the menu more a function of the lease as we write it in terms of the rent expected? And that's something that we would have more control over with a future lease and RFP process? Or, is this as good as it gets, and it is already below market given where the market's going, and nobody gets to control the price of the beef, and say that much, or the labor. So that's where I'm kind of back and forth about what's the best path.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yep.
Pardon me. After the April 30th, 2023 expiration of the current lease, it's automatic unless the conditions that are pointed out on page 143 that Public House is not currently performing to the conditions of the lease. Not open for lunch. I've gone by a number of times in the winter looking to grab a beer after skiing and been disappointed. This would be a real no-brainer for me if, at the end of the current lease, that it was a check-in with council, with the city, and you guys, that if everything's been going well, that we agree to extend the lease with that 5-year option. That gives us a half a year to see how things are working. By transferring 50% or controlling interest in the restaurant, we're giving a 10.5-year lease on a Wheeler space that hasn't gone through full vetting with an RFP process. My understanding and recollection that Public House was going to be able to supply food for events at the Wheeler. Have we had any of those since post-COVID, or if we're post-COVID?
What we have done has been pre-COVID. And so it's been in a limited capacity, and the lease was written specifically in a manner to recognize that that was a growth area for the business, but our priority was the serving locals sit-down meals first. And so it is not written that it was an expectation, but we would like the vendor in that space to be a preferred caterer. They've helped us out with artists' meals when it's appropriate, but otherwise we've really have wanted them to focus on their product that's available to the general public.
Yeah, an area for additional revenue is the reason for that question. If we're in a public health position where Public House is in a position staff-wise that they could extend services to the Wheeler, is that an option for you to increase your revenues?
So I'm going to jump in here because Bill and I have had a lot of conversations about this over the past. A catering kitchen is very different than the kitchen we have in the Wheeler right now. And we aren't necessarily designed to support high volume needs of the Wheeler for certain types of events. We have discussed at one point, Bill was able to use an off-site kitchen that he owned to support that, but that was a olive branch is what I would call it, and trying to work with us. That's why we didn't write it into the lease this way. What I would encourage the council to do tonight, I've heard enough tonight that I hear, I'm not hearing no, but you've got some reservations and you want staff and the applicant to brainstorm on them. I'd recommend that we ask the applicant for a postponement on a decision, or if they need the decision tonight, I feel like I have enough here to know what to work on with the applicant to sort this out a little bit better and give you a clearer picture before you vote.
Yeah. I have to say that I understand your proposal about next April, but should this sort of transaction go forward, any new investor is going to want a little longer of a run-out time to know that their investment in decor and fixtures and upgrades to the kitchen or whatever have time to pay off. And that would really only give it this winter season coming up. And so I would agree with wanting to table this and give it a little more time and thought. And perhaps it is a potential new lease or something, but that at the very least would not have extensions out 10 full years. I also would like to think a little more about the non-compete aspect of issuing this when the 25% was very clearly put in there to make sure that there was a continuity and that should there want to be an end to the lease, say it's over, that we would be able to issue new RFPs, if that was happening. So I have a lot of empathy for what you're trying to do, but I just can't move that quickly on something this major.
Thanks. Skippy?
So questions, and maybe these get answered now, maybe they come back, but as it pertains to the question of sort of opening this up, RFP, other opportunities. If we wanted to pursue a path that allowed for other applicants, what are the potential paths forward for that? Is there only one? Are there several? What does that look like?
In general, in leases, there's a couple options. First, a renewal is contingent upon faithful performance of the other key terms of the lease. So there would be an evaluation of that to be eligible for extension. Otherwise, if the leaseholder is executing and we find that they've been faithful in all their other components of the lease, the way this lease is written, it is at their option to renew. So the final option is for City Council to initiate some kind of breaking of the lease, even if the tenant is in full compliance or in substantial compliance. And we're not anywhere near what we think are those issues. Jim disagrees with me, so we better have him
because of the opening time? Oh, it's doing the matrix thing. I love that.
Well, if the tenant is in compliance with the lease, then as Sarah was saying, the ability to renew it at the end of the initial 5-year term is with the tenant, and it's unilateral. I would note that there is a provision in the lease that says that the renewal may not be successful if the tenant is in violation. And technically, the tenant is in violation of the lease at this point, and has been for a while. The way the status is in April, I can't. Next year, I can't predict.
Yeah. Okay.
But initiating any kind of RFP process to find a new operator doesn't work at this stage because there is an existing tenant that has a lease, and he can continue to pursue it outside of this transfer. But this transfer is a 51% transfer, and it is something that I think council can fairly evaluate or needs to recognize in its evaluation of whether it wishes to give consent. And the consent that it gives is discretionary with council.
Got it.
I would tend to agree with Sarah in this situation that given some of the comments that there may need to be further negotiations in the agreement, the resolution that providing the consent could have conditions on it that would make council more comfortable about pursuing or consenting to the lease or the transfer of the ownership in the business. This is, despite the title that was in the agenda, this is not proposed as a lease amendment at this time. This is simply a consent to a transfer under that provision. But nonetheless, you can put conditions on that transfer that would, in essence, act as an amendment in certain regards.
Got it. Okay. Got it. That's
in the event. I think it makes it, given the comments, I think that setting this aside and bringing it back to council may be appropriate.
Got it. I appreciate that, Jim. That's helpful. You know, I think it needs a little bit of time to simmer as well and develop flavor. I think, you know, for me, 80% of my hesitancy on this is around just having clearer agreements around long-term affordability. I think if we can clear those at a staff level with staff working through that stuff, that'll get me 80% of the way there. And maybe we can kind of think of it in that context of, you know, at a category 2, 3 income, can you afford to have a nice dinner out once a month and be there a few times for drinks and an appetizer, you know, something like that. And then the remaining 20% is that sort of fairness process. I think what Jim said, you know, does significantly reduce the initial concern I had of that, in that, while technically, yes, they're out of compliance with the lease, I think if we're being fair and reasonable, you know, with COVID conditions and everything else, I mean, we've wanted to have the rec center open all the time too, and we haven't. So applying the same standard, you know, I would say they're in the spirit of the lease. And so if we applied that standard, they'd have the opportunity to extend anyways. And so it doesn't fully get it away, but it does mediate it for me. And so I'd want a little bit more time to think about that. But those are the things I'd want to know.
I think it's most appropriate to table it and allow Sarah and Jim to work on some of the concerns we've had going forward. I think for me, this starts to feel like new ownership, a new operation. It's going to be a new restaurant. And at the very least, I could see not having 2 automatic extensions, potentially 1, but not 2. I think we all might feel a little better if you were just doing a 25% ownership transfer rather than 51. It changes the nature of the dynamic. And I appreciate your partner here, but he seems to be a silent partner for the most part, and at least at this meeting. And so I would make a motion to. Do I need to table?
So I would encourage you to inquire with the applicant whether they would want a vote tonight or whether they are interested in continuing negotiations before you make that motion.
Okay.
Would you guys be interested, and also, Ralph, would you have interest in sharing anything with us up here as well, since you haven't said much?
Well, no, Bill said, for me and Bill, at the beginning of this story is we started talking this winter, and we've been knowing each other for years, and we like each other. We have the same taste and everything. So this is all started as, like us getting along and seeing the potential, more potential for the space. And at the time, Bill and I were talking, and Bill were thinking about focusing more time on family and how hard it is, and especially nowadays with the short staff and the economy and everything. In the meantime, on a personal level, since I sold my share to my ex-wife to the creperie, this is what I do. So I'm passionate about it. It's not about, sounds weird, but profit and greediness and everything. It's really about passion to me. Always been in love with that space. Even though when I was running the creperie, we had a few drinks at the public house, and always been in love with the place. And we thought that teaming up together will bring something, interesting to the city, and to answer certain questions about being affordable. This is part of the concept from day one. I know all the restaurant owners in town. I go out. I know what's going on in this town. And we were the first ones saying, the little genius nowadays will be someone, like especially what's going on with all those people, like big group from Chicago, from LA, from Miami. We don't know them. They're super expensive. There is no, will be the little genius, will be the trick. That will be a beautiful concept to have, to go back, to bring what, I moved here in 2006, and I was still like locals bars and like locals get together. And this is totally the idea of what we want to do, me and Bill at the public house. So it's kind of like we're both passionate about it. Bill never wanted to leave the public house. It's just so, we've been talking for months and months and months about potentially doing things together. And I was hearing about Bill's certain frustration about, like little details like you just mentioned, saying that he has a lot of people coming and then they're just like going for cocktails and then, but we have a reservation at PM somewhere else. So we just want to make a teamwork that works together and make more volume, and not being absolutely not fancy and not, very, very expensive. This is exactly the idea, is to bring the local back. Bill has a good reputation. I got a lot of followers from 12 years running the creperie, and bring this place alive back to 7 days a day, lunch and dinners, and big après-ski. And so little things. I want to add something also, guys, about the menu and everything. And Skippy, I hear you out. When you said like tapas, I'm going to spend like $100 to be full on tapas. The thing about tapas, it's like it's convivial, but it's also all connected with everything. It's like a snowball effect. Like, what people love sushi so much, it's because, you're a group of people together, and then you explore options of different things, seafood. And And it's also connected with the wine sales that we want to push that. And this is one of the major points that Bill explained to me. The cocktail's doing really well. What's the sales on the wine right now? You're doing actually, it's. I mean, without talking about numbers, guys, there is a huge potential here. Without selling $60 or $70 a glass of wine, this beautiful wine for $9, for $12. It's to give also. When we started this project, was actually a wine bar, because the wine bar, it's a little bit of, everything. It's like you have a lot of option for wine by the glass. You can do some nice pairing dinners. So at this point, to me, everything is a work in progress. When I hear you saying that the tapas and everything, it's not tapas. We might add a beautiful spaghetti carbonara for $18 or $20, like L'Osteria used to have on the wine bar. And this is going to be work in progress with the chef and everything. But the idea, we totally understand the spirit of the place. First of all, the building is beautiful. It's a great location. This is amazing inside. And then we really would love to do something together. So all the options that we are really to work hard on, and remaining very affordable and bringing all locals back. And he knows a lot of people. I know a lot of people in town, and stay humble and have a great place, a great vibe, and being busy all the time and making volumes and having this place like open like all afternoon and big après-ski and alive and I mean, there's the moon can be with all the knowing, what we have to do, to make everybody happy. Got it. So this is how it all started with me and Bill. We started talking this winter. We know each other for years. And Bill and I were on the same page on a lot of things. We have the same passion for wine. So we started having fun with a potential wine bar and changing things. And so this is where we're at.
Got
this is how, we here tonight.
Thank you.
You guys.
Thank you.
I want to share a couple of my comments for you, and then we're going to move forward on this. First of all, I appreciate the description of sustainability that you've put into this. That was one of my first questions coming in here, is whether or not you were going to be operating with comprehensive compost, recycling, and diverting food waste. So I appreciate that you listing that. My only other consideration really here was about affordability and appropriateness for the Wheeler Opera House. I have a slight concern about your remodel, what you are suggesting, and the imagery that you are putting forth here. I don't find consistent with the building itself. So I have a concern there. I also have a concern about doing a remodel that costs you money just to get going, which inevitably drives menu prices because you have to pay for the investment that you've already put in it. That's a concern to me. When I look at the menu, first of all, Bill sees me quite often over at Public House because I love it. I'm in the neighborhood. I try to utilize it as much as possible to support local, and that's what Bill is a local establishment. And so I'm over there quite a bit. Raph, I loved the work that you did at Creperie. You took a space that was pretty much not able to even have a restaurant and made it into one of the most charming places truly, not just in our state, but in our region and even national recognition. So I have tremendous respect for both of you guys and what you do. But when I look at the menu that is suggested here, I love the idea of tapas. Shared food is wonderful. And then I get down to entrees and large plates. You've got 3 examples here. They are all in the $40 range. So I have concern about that affordability and that price point about what you've brought in front of us. But more than that, it is a place for all of Aspen. The lease terms is set in order to allow you the opportunity to serve everybody that can be out at all. That affordability. Now, the way that I see that playing out is really to have those options. It doesn't have to be top to bottom on your menu, but there should be those options available, and that's what I'm just not seeing from what you've put forward here. Lastly, I was on City Council when it moved from Bentley's operation to a new leaser. Leslie?
Kylie?
No, sir. Yes. We approved at this table one concept. What we got back was not that concept. It wasn't the menu. It wasn't even the name of the place. So I sit here having been burned once. I took a lot of heat from the community for the changing concept that happened there from Bentley's, which was a place that really served people lunch and dinner, to a concept that was a very selective audience. And so I'm sitting here with a little bit of fear going forward in this direction. It is a further departure from where you are now. And Bill, I commend you. I mean, the menu that you have now of price points, you figured it out to the penny in order to maintain that affordability, and it shows in what you do. I appreciate fellow council members here with their concerns about the transfer of 51% in a public facility like this, a publicly owned facility like this, is not necessarily the way that we do business on this. We go out to RFPs for that equal opportunity to make sure that the community is being returned what their investment in this is. So I support us taking our time with this. I think there's some more work needs to be done and some more assurances of that concept going forward. So with that, did you want to make a motion for tabling? Do you just need to?
I would like to first find out if the applicant or the leasee is willing to wait until September 13th, which is your next regular meeting, and devote some time over the next 2 weeks in sorting this out. So your alternatives are to request a vote tonight or to have a postpone it to September 13th.
Thank you.
I mean, this is critical to my future, so I think if you guys would like more information, more assurances, I'm happy to wait. I'm 4.5 years into the public house. Another month isn't going to move the needle for me. And just a quick question, like the 51-49 split, that was largely symbolic, to reflect as an acknowledgement of, effort and equality of pay in a partnership. I mean, like it's not tantamount to what we're trying to do, Raphael and myself. So if you guys would like, we could step that back to
I think what we would prefer is to not negotiate that at the table and find out if you are comfortable with a postponement to a date certain of September 13th to bring back this resolution.
Let's see, which resolution number
It
is?
would be a continuance then to date certain of the.
Yes, because it's only one meeting. You could continue it if you chose.
Yeah, I would move that we continue this until September 13th at our next regular meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Just thank you to both of you for everything you've provided for our community to date.
Thank you.
If it took you a year and a half, 2 years to get to this point, it'll take us a little more time to resolve it as well.
Mr. Mayor, before the applicant leaves at this time, I'd like to suggest that, given some of the comments, there may be some legal issues, some negotiation issues that would be appropriately discussed in the executive session that we have scheduled. Executive sessions and the purpose of executive sessions can be disclosed at a particular meeting, but I wanted to make sure they understood before they left that we may request that this be added to our executive session that we're about to go into. I just wanted to make sure that that was fully disclosed to not only the public, but to them as they sat there. There's just some issues that have come up that as I and some staff have thought about it, that may be appropriately discussed in executive session.
Very good.
So that will be part of the request. Council does not have to discuss it, but part of the request of staff.
Yeah. And
Anybody
just
have any
to
questions?
be clear, executive session is allowed under state law for negotiation purposes, advice from your attorney, land acquisitions. No decisions can be made in executive session.
Diane, can you follow up too to provide a little more context for Raphael and Bill? Thank you. And then, ladies, if you could please stay if we are going to talk about this tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
I understand that we can't make council cannot make any decisions in executive session.
Yeah.
Address issues, and particularly legal opinions that I may have. But I will, if it's okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm prepared to move forward.
We have one more agenda item, Jim.
We're not there yet, Jim.
We have another agenda item.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were
Yeah,
doing
and we
that.
need Nicole to call the vote.
Thanks.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau?
Yes.
Counselor Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See you in a month or so.
Thank you.
Jim, we still have one more item to go, so. Our next action item here is the Galena Cooper Living Lab, Post-Lab Temporary Conditions. Next steps.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm looking for direction from the council. I've had some conversations with some of you individually indicating there's some lab elements that you would like to have maintained as winter conditions rather than a full restoration back to the pre-lab conditions. A few of those items are noted in the memo for you. We just need direction, and so that we can properly prepare our documents for the contractors expected to come in here in September, of what your expectations are. On November 1st, there'll be a more full conversation of the council about what does the long-term solution look like, and we're hopeful to get direction out of that. Matter of fact, just today, engineering and I were reviewing some potential cost estimates for 2023 construction for implementation of possible elements as we're working on budget. So we just want to know tonight, not the long term, we just want to know what you want this to look like over the winter, if there's any amenities you would like to keep or attributes you'd like to keep. And secondly, we will communicate whatever that decision is back out to the community. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so if you've seen your memo, you'll see under discussion, there has been some expression from a few council members, and we need to check in with the full board here at the table, that there's a potential for returning the angle parking to the east side of Galena. That would be the left-hand side of the one-way. Galena would remain one-way through the curve and on Cooper. And so returning angle parking on the east side, the left-hand side, but maintain the parallel parking on the west side. That is one item. The second item here is that staff is recommending maintaining the one-way on Hyman between Hunter and Galena, that one block, keeping it one-way. And the third item for discussion is the three-way stop at Hopkins and Galena. So I want to just start discussion. I support the first reference, which is to go back to angle parking on one side of the street, the east side, but maintain the parallel on the other. I still question Hyman Street as a one-way between Hunter and Galena. Having that as a two-way allows traffic that is on Galena to exit that street before they get to that turn. In other words, one-waying that street funnels everything that's on Galena or on Hyman around the corner where we have the most pedestrian usage. So I am currently for returning that to two-way between Hunter and Galena. And the three-way stop at Hopkins, I am supportive of maintaining that stop at that intersection.
Which intersection are you talking about?
The one out in front of the old City Hall, the Armory building.
Got it.
I have a question. The parallel parking being on the east side would be on the Down Valley side. And,
East side is,
okay, the east side's that side. So you're talking about the angle parking being on the Independence Pass side?
correct.
That was not the proposal in here. It's for the west side for the
That's what I
parallel
thought.
parking. So it's a traditional maneuver
Yeah.
for parallel parking. Sorry, I always think about.
Yeah, no, that's why I was getting confused. I thought there was discussion, at least prior, and, for me, thinking about older configurations of the road, perhaps parallel going in towards the angle parking going in towards that, because it's got the slope as well for, drainage, and then parallel on the other side. I mean,
We'll do whichever one the council.
well, I know, that's why I just wanted to say if we're
desires.
talking
Just
about the same thing.
The intentions here was with my request was to understand if you wanted to keep the parallel parking on the down valley side through the winter, or if you want both sides to return back to angled parking as the original conditions.
Okay. For me, going through the list, I'd like to see parallel on one side and angle on the other. I'd like to see it remain as a one-way through that section so that when we get back to summertime, there will be room for bike lanes in the center of the road. And I think it should remain as a one-way going forward, both bikes and auto going in the same one-way direction. The three-way stop I'm comfortable with, and I actually am more comfortable with the one-way on Hopkins. That is the area, on Hyman. That is the area where we did have the tragic accident with the young child. I think safety is a little more important at that area. It just seems that I've seen too many people going too fast to try to get out of traffic, and let's get off to the side. So, that's what I would see in the long term, and I would not want to return to two-way traffic this winter and then go back to one-way traffic next summer, I guess is what I'm saying. I think it should start to be a consistent going forward towards something. The only reason I guess I always had thought of the angle being on the down valley side was that's how it used to be, but back before CCLC and Don Shealy.
It used to be two-way.
It used to be two-way as well, but I think you could, continue to park going in a one-way direction in both of those two aspects. I'm just one voice. I understand that.
Appreciate that. John?
I'll just go down the list. I'm going to go with staff recommendations for keeping Hyman Street one way for the safety concerns. The three-way stop at Hopkins and Galena, I would go along with that. And as far as parking goes, it does, I know it feels good to park angle on that side of the street, but people parallel parking, it's hard enough on the passenger side of the street. Having them do it on the driver's side is just asking for trouble.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
So I would vote for angle on the up valley side of the street and parallel on the down valley side of the street.
I can support that.
Thank you.
Ward? I'm visioning parallel parking, the difficulty or challenges.
I know. I want to hear Ward first.
Okay.
I don't have a strong opinion about this.
Okay.
Yeah, the second two I agree with. I think that keeping Hyman one way and then the stop sign in front of the three-way in front of the Armory. And I guess I'm kind of agnostic on which side is parallel and which side is angle. I don't know that any of us are proficient parallel parking one way or the other.
They just convinced me with what side the driver's on in the car, so I realized that that's something I wasn't
I
thinking
support
about.
angle parking on one side and parallel on the other.
Let them decide the most logical.
You guys can
and
decide
safest.
on that.
I did have one other suggestion. On my trip back east, I noticed a lot of the bike lanes are painted green, which I think helps people know that's where bike goes.
And some of ours are on Mill Street.
Right. When we get to permanent conditions, that is one of the changes we make. Finding some of the contractors necessary to do that for the lab was a challenge.
Got a little ahead of myself, sorry.
No, you're not ahead of yourself. It was just our realities.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate observation throughout not only the country but the world that green is bicycle lanes.
Great.
All right.
When do we get the sort of data download on everything? Is that going to be the November 1?
We will be providing you, I don't know what level of data download you're looking for as a council, but we will be bringing back to you the summary of the public involvement and staff observations from the lab.
Okay.
Three-way stop, parallel on the right, angle on the left, and maintain the one-way?
Maintain the one-way through Paradise, I think makes sense. I think that's functioning well.
The specific inquiries.
The other one-way, yeah. So that's the turn back. I mean, if there's a majority opinion, I'm happy to go along with that. I don't have a strong view here. I kind of had the anecdotal feeling that you did, Tori, that the one-way just funnels more cars towards the biggest pedestrian area. It's kind of my intuition, but again, I don't have a strong opinion here. Everyone supports parallel on one side. Great, you guys can decide. And then the three-way stop sign. I mean, I just don't have a strong opinion about this.
All right. Then you've got council majority is maintaining the three-way stop, maintaining the one-way on Hyman, and returning angle on the east side and parallel parking on the west side.
One last question. I agree with your summary there, Tori. Does that mean that the majority of Galena goes back to being a two-way road for this winter, or does
No, it's one way.
does the Galena maintain as one way?
It's one way.
Stays one way.
Okay, I just want to assure myself.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Unless you want to be a real dork.
Yeah, no. Some people will.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
just for what it's worth, just for comment, I know we'll talk about this in November, but just sort of in observation, you know, I think it's great we tried stuff. It didn't go great. But, you know, the bike element is probably the least successful in my mind. The most successful was actually the unintended, which was the unexpected additional pedway where people were walking in the bike lanes. The conflict wasn't great, but the fact that people wanted that's to me is the success to build on. And, you know, the parking thing, people's opinions are their opinions, and I appreciate that, but I just don't think it's the direction we need to go, so I'm not super concerned.
I just want to remind everybody about how awesome July 4th was with the
So great.
vehicle-free downtown
Oh my
core.
God, so great.
That was really,
So
that was
great.
really awesome.
I heard no businesses complain about it.
Okay, so got direction.
Thank you.
Thank
you, guys.
Thanks.
Do your thing, Jim.
Oh.
You ready? Or Kate.
Do we have food
Do
for
we
a second?
want to talk about the public house as well tonight, or is that an additional addition to this that's going to not have a lot?
That is Jim and my recommendation. We communicated during that discussion, and we feel like getting some parameters as well as providing you some advice would be valuable to turn this around and see if we have a deal that works for the community.
Great.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, staff's recommending the council go into executive session pursuant to CRS Section 246402-4A, purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of real or personal property. B, conference with their attorney for the local public body for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiation in-depth personnel. The specific items of discussion involve the following. One, the Centennial Owners Association versus City of Aspen et al., case number 2015 CV 030158. The Aspen Mini Storage LLC, its status and operations, and added tonight is the Wheeler Opera House public house lease. If council elects to go into executive session, the executive session will be recorded, and the recording will be maintained by the clerk for a period of not less than 90 days. The intent is to, if you elect to go into executive session, to move the executive session down to council chambers on the second floor. Thank you.
Moved.
I move we go into executive session.
You're on red.
I second John's motion.
I move we go into executive session
Pursuant to the citations of the attorney.
pursuant to the citations of the attorney.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for executive session, please?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yes.
Counselor Richards,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. All right, thank you so much. Grassroots, we appreciate everybody that was viewing this evening. We will be going into executive session, and when we come out of executive session, we will just be doing adjournment of the regular meeting. So we will not be coming back to our Zoom or Grassroots at that time. Thank you, guys. Have a great evening. Thank you, Amy.